When you think of a dumpling, what image comes to mind? And when you think of the Baltics...
The Baltic states, we've got Estonia, Lithuania, and I want to say Stankonia.
You know, the Baltics, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. What image comes to mind? Well, I'm going to challenge your preconceived notions of both, because today, the modern Baltics are a vital part of the European Union, with thriving economies and democracies. However, it is a little bit funny combining a Baltic country name as an adjective to any noun. Try it for yourself. Estonian microwave. Latvian dentistry. Lithuanian toilet paper.
My mom says they're very popular with Latvian athletes.
And when you think of a dumpling, you likely think of a light, delicate Asian dish. A single bright mouthful of Eastern flavors and spices, usually mixed with meat, veggies, or seafood. Folded, as if by a master craftsman whose life's work is to make edible origami.
A goose!
So when you think about a Lithuanian dumpling, and no, that is not a sex joke, your mind probably goes blank. Well, today, I'm going to fill in that blank, because we're going to make Cepelinai, one of Lithuania's national dishes, and what I assume is Europe's largest meat and potato dumpling. So pour yourself a beautiful Lithuanian beer, because I want to teach you how to make Cepelinai. Būk sveikas! For Cepelinai, apologies for my poor pronunciation, you will need potatoes, the white fluffy kind, ground pork with a high fat content, cured pork belly or bacon, onions, potato starch, sour cream, milk, dill, green onions, and parsley. You want to maintain a 4:1 potato to meat ratio since the potatoes will lose a lot of weight and volume once dehydrated, and the dumplings themselves are more potato wrapping than meat stuffing. I have way too much ground meat for this adventure, but better too much than not enough. Speaking of too much, for those of you not acquainted with Lithuanian or Baltic food, it is an exceptionally heavy affair, with meat and potatoes being the center of nearly every dish. Basically, if you aren't eating like a long-starved medieval farmhand or a guest at Winterfell, you're not doing it right. So loosen those belts and say farewell to your keto diet. First boil 3 to 4 potatoes and then cool them. They will be used later to help bind together our potato dough. The amount of potatoes here produced 6 rather large Cepelinai, but again, better to make too much than not enough. Clean, peel, and submerge in cold water to avoid oxidation. Dice an onion to add to the mince stuffing. They can either be sautéed or added raw. I personally prefer sautéed. Traditionally, the potatoes are grated down on the angry, pimply side of the 4-sided grater. You know, the side that's typically used to grind hard cheeses into dust. We're going to turn these peeled potatoes into a lovely slurry that will act as the base of our dumpling wrappers. Also, make sure you violently drag your fingertips and knuckles across the grater surface as often as possible. It's a great way to exfoliate. I assume if you have a food processor with a grater blade attachment, this will make life easier. Just whatever you do, minimize exposure to oxygen. Spoon your potato mash into a cheesecloth bag, or your cleanest loosely woven burlap sack, and squeeze out the moisture, leaving behind a thick potato dough. Set this liquid aside though, don't toss it out. The starch will settle at the bottom and be reincorporated into the dough. Now season your meat. For the love of God, season your meat. Salt, pepper, garlic powder, onions, dried sweet chili flakes. Whatever you might add to a burger, you could likely add here. It'd be a shame to spend all this time making the dough just to fill it with dog food, which tastes and smells terrible.
It tastes just like it smells!
If you want to make a pan sauce, set aside a couple tablespoons of ground meat for the grate. By this time the starch is settled from the filtered potato water. Pour off the water and scrape the starch off the bottom and mix it into the dough. Now you want to add 2 to 3 tablespoons of additional potato starch to the dough just to help make sure everything binds. Grind 3 or so boiled potatoes from earlier. If you have a potato ricer or fancy food processor, it would be much better than using this shitty old Soviet meat grinder, but hey, we don't all live in a Williams-Sonoma. You basically want to break it down to be absolutely without any lumps or pieces so that it will combine with the rest of the potatoes. By weight, you want the dough to be about 20% boiled potato, so mix in the appropriate amount. Then you want to make a thick pancake of potato dough and place a log of ground meat into the center and gently but firmly seal it shut. I mean, honestly, I tried to think of a more elegant way to describe this, but words failed me. Gently roll them in your palms to help get the right shape, an elongated dumpling with tapered ends. These are literally called Zeppelins in Lithuanian. You want to make sure that the seam is totally sealed and that the meat is firmly encased in dough without mashing too hard, because you can end up with a real mess on your hands.
Just mashing it now. It's not...
Chop your pork belly or bacon and saute. Drop the dumplings into boiling water to cook for 20 to 25 minutes. They will start to float once the dough is cooked, but let them go for a couple more minutes just to ensure that the filling is also cooked through. Once the fat starts to render out of your pork, add the onions to the pan and cook together. This will make a lovely pork cracklins and onion mix to top your dumplings with. Remove from heat once thoroughly browned. This step is totally optional, but if you want to make a pan gravy, just brown a couple tablespoons of ground meat in the pan you made the cracklins in. Then add sour cream. Once the gravy comes together, add milk, lower heat, and stir consistently until you have the desired consistency. Remove from heat. Once the dumplings are done, they should be plated and served immediately. I put a layer of gravy on a plate and then added the Cepelinai. Top with sour cream, dill, green onions, and our pork cracklings and onions mixture. However, in my bougie attempt to be so damned extra with the plating, the dumplings oxidized a bit and turned a little gray. But the texture of the dough was perfect, light and moist, and the meat was well cooked and delightfully seasoned. These mega dumplings pair exceptionally well with beer. Combining beer with Cepelinai creates an almost tranquilizing effect that tells your body that you are for sure not running a marathon anytime soon. So what do you think of Europe's largest dumpling? Are there any other Baltic dishes you want to learn to cook? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, eat well, friends.